Hey everybody, this is Ryan, and it is time to get started with Coach's Corner today. It is a Friday, expiration day. It's a cloudy day in June in Seattle. 2 weeks ago, we had 80-degree plus weather in May, which happens occasionally, not too often, but we had some beautiful couple, 3 weeks. June actually started up pretty good, but we have what's called June gloom in Seattle. And that means that you just get a taste of, oh, here comes summer, and then June hits and you go, oh, gee. So we're having a little June gloom today, but it's not raining. And we're actually starting into really our good weather from a Seattle standpoint. So, excuse me. What I want to do is to look at the chat real quick and just acknowledge fine folks and any good words that you're throwing out here. Let's see, we've got first up, Brenda, how you doing, kiddo? Good to see you. Oscar, nice to see you from Los Angeles. Kevin, good to see you, my friend. Let's see, cloudy and humid here in Ohio. Well, I do understand that. I spent a summer in Canton, Ohio when I was in college doing what you do in college. You go to the summer and try to sell something to everybody. And in Canton and Maslin, oh my gosh, talk about humidity. That's where I really learned to feel humidity. Beautiful though. It was a nice place. I like Canton, where we were at in Maslin, and went to the Football Hall of Fame. It was kind of cool, but welcome from Ohio. Helen, good to see you. Robert, in the 90s here in Florida with so much sun. Humidity, you're starting almost to the time of year where it starts to rain every day. Not quite though, but you get that incredible, I've been there, you could almost set your watch by 2 o'clock. Okay, here comes the rain. Jeff, 110 in Phoenix. Yeah, my sister lives down there and I get those reports all the time. Robert says, yeah, like a steam room. Yeah, but not for Jeff. Jeff's like a oven inside of an oven, hot and dry. All right, well, folks, let's get started. I'm really excited to talk with you today about this. There's a couple things I'm excited to talk with you about. So let me start this and share the screen with you. And let's make sure we get a screen share. And we're going to start right here. All right, so give me a confirmation, guys, that you can see my smiling face there, that we have a slideshow up there. Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right, guys, first of all, we will do our wonderful disclaimer here. How come that's not changing on this screen here? There we go. Just to confirm, I gotta confirm which screen you're looking at here, guys. Just a second. Let me look on my screen share here. Okay, so if I change the screen, do you see the upcoming events? Does that show up there? Upcoming events show up? All right, perfect. All right, so I know I got multiple screens, guys, and I sometimes lose track of which one you're looking at. Okay, so there's our calendar of events coming up. Guys, we have to pay homage to our disclaimer. Nothing that we're going to talk about today is going to have to do with any specific real trading scenario that I'm advising you to put real money into. Bottom line, I think you know that. If we're talking about any kind of specifics, it is in a training environment, not a recommendation, excuse me, to buy or sell. All right. So here we go. Now, boom. Very first thing, guys, I am so excited about this. I've been around, as Rob has, with Trade Navigator and the Genesis and all the different names that are associated with this company for 20 years. The people of the utmost in terms of the character and their commitment to cutting edge and having good data and information. There is a major change. You've been notified of this, but I got to tell you that switching over to this Omega charts and the things that are going to be connected with that, this is a phenomenal deal. Okay, I'm really excited about the things that are being worked on there. There's things that are being worked on for me. If you look down the list, this is a great upgrade. So this is like when the new iPhone comes out, right? Or the new Samsung Note comes out. This is the next iteration, and it is a big deal. It's a great upgrade, a great improvement. These tools that are being offered on here, the Pro Scanner, the Trend Outlook, and the VWAP, these are some awesome tools. And the offer that is there will not last more than today. Okay, I've already seen the prices, and they're discounted prices. They're good prices that will be going forward from here. But this introductory offer is, in fact, today is the last time that we're going to be able to offer this at the $495. So if you are looking at this, if you are hesitant at all, this is a time that you don't want to hesitate. Right? You don't want to wait on this one. This is, in fact, something that is going to change, and it won't be in your favor. This is one of those promotional things where you take advantage of it, or it goes away. Okay, for reals. So these 3 additional bonuses that go along with it, these 3 scanners, the VWAP, the library, and the Pro Scanner, as upgrades to this process, absolutely a great deal. I'm really excited to work on this. Okay. Oh, all right. Somebody says, I don't know what Trade Navigator is. Please explain. Wow. Okay. So Trade Navigator is the charting platform that we use, RW. It is a, well, we'll pull it up and I'll show you. All right. But it is the charting software that we use. There are elements in this that are this is a baseline platform that we work off of. Sometimes people will have different trading platforms. They'll trade off of different things as far as making their trades, but your charting software, your ability to do this from an analytical standpoint, to do your charting and all of the tools that are built into it, it is so robust. There's nothing like it. I really don't think there's any equal to it from a charting standpoint. So Juan says, besides pay for it now, how much will it cost monthly? You know what? You have your direct line call in to Wealth Builders. When we're done with this today, when we're done with our class, call in. And somebody, whether it's Lisa or someone, will, maybe Amelia, probably Amelia, will be able to help you and walk you through those details. I don't want to go very much farther into our time here with this, other than call and get the details so that you can get it in, okay? All right. Better after the 500. Call Amelia and she'll give you all the details, okay? And Amy, let's see. Amy just put on your support, the number up there for you, support@wealthbuilders.com, and then call in if you've got details. They'll help you out. Okay. All right, here we go. Guys, this is such a powerful message today. I hope you pay attention. Again, when we do Coach's Corner, we're not going to sit here and drill down to the granular level completely. But this is some powerful stuff. And I hope if this intrigues you that you'll go down this journey, this rabbit hole with me in more detail, because it's something that you have to get right. It really is. So when I say the Holy Grail is a representation. Everybody should probably have some reference to what that is. It's something that means it's sacred. It's pivotal. In other words, things are built off of this. The 3 R's. Okay, and what are the 3 R's? From a foundational standpoint around trading, all strategies and the intricacies of a plan boil, spelled wrong there, boil down to these three elements. So all strategies, all intricacies of those strategies, all the different rules and components of a strategy or a trading process boil down to this: risk reward ratio. Now, risk reward ratio is a specific number in a formula, but there's three components, and it is risk, reward, and the ratio of those two elements. And I want to pick those apart a little bit with you today, because it's critical that you follow this and you understand it. First of all, risk. Let's talk about risk. There's something that came to my mind. That there's a phrase that if you start, there's certain phrases, if you start it, pretty much everybody could finish the sentence. So this one says, the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. Okay. So first rules. Warren Buffett, if you ask Warren Buffett, what's the first rule of trading? His first rule is number one, don't lose money. Number two is don't lose money. And number three is go back to number one, don't lose money. That's his rule. Okay. Michael McDonald in the song says, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. That's the first rule in gambling. Okay. Has to do with risk again. But here's the reality, folks. One of the best traders I've ever met in my life said that he makes 80% of all of the trades, all of the profits rather, are made on less than 20% of the trades. So in other words, from an active trading standpoint, which is the difference between he and Buffett. So from a trading standpoint, on the far left-hand side, you would have Warren Buffett, which is long-term, don't lose money, invest in good companies and wait. And then you go all the way to the other side where you've got active day traders. They're all trading in the market. They just have a different time frame, different objective, different game plan, but they're all trading in the market. If you're active trading, which everybody I know associated with wealth builders is in some way not Warren Buffett, okay? Because if you're Warren Buffett, you're probably not spending time in wealth builders with Rob and I and all the other coaches. You're somewhere in the needle, maybe all the way over here, but maybe somewhere kind of in the middle. You're actively trading the markets. And in that case, you've got to have something that works for you, that blesses you, that helps you, that's somewhere between Warren Buffett, which is just buy good companies, research the heck out of them and wait, and then actively trade. Somewhere in between, you've got to have something that serves you. That means you're going to be somewhere in that range of a small percent of your trades account for the massive amount of your gains by the end of a year. Now, here's the corollary to that. The 80% rule continues to work here, and it literally does. 80 to 85% of all active traders are net negative at the end of every year. That was a stunning statistic that I had to verify myself. I went, that's interesting. And then I went away and I went and dug up the information. That can't be true. No way. Dig it up. Yes, it is. Active traders, about 8 out of 10 are net negative at the end of every year. The ones that make money, okay, the ones that actually make money make most of their trades on a small amount of their trade, or most of their profit on a small amount of their trades. Okay, so let this sink in. If you're going to actively trade, the odds are, I mean, this is sad, and I'm not saying this is the odds for the Wealth Builders students, because it's not. I really don't believe that. But I'm talking about people who engage in active trading, even in prop houses, professional trading houses, where they trade thousands of trades a year. About 80% of them are net negative at the end of the year. 70% drop out in the first year, 90% drop out by the second year. Wow, this is negative. Nobody should trade, right? No, baloney. Baloney. There's a reason why those statistics happen. And there is a good explanation as to why you don't have to be part of those statistics. Simply put, risk and reward have an inverse proportion. The more risk you take, the higher potential rewards, but the higher potential of you failing, unless you take some extraordinary measures. Now, what do I mean by extraordinary measures? Measures that are expensive? Not necessarily. Are they going to take some work? Yes. Extraordinary, yes, which means what? Extraordinary. Guys, ordinary already has proven itself. Ordinary, normal, doesn't work so good. Extraordinary means you're willing to put a little bit of effort, extra effort, some money and some time. Get with some good coaches, follow those coaches, spend the money and the time, get the training, do the drills, put in the time, actually do the drills to develop the skills. Okay? But you have to understand that risk and reward, this is as old as ever. Okay? This is as old as ever. Risk and reward have an inverse proportion. Higher risk, higher reward, lower risk, lower reward. That's not an inverse proportion, but it is because the risk of failure goes up with the higher risk that you take. So you've got to be able to put this in perspective and make sense out of it. I'm going to introduce a Japanese term, a Japanese name, ma'ai. Ma'ai. Okay, ma'ai is the appropriate distance. If there is a fighting situation, this is fascinating, guys. If you have two people that are looking to kind of fight with each other, all systems go on alert. If you have them approach each other just an inch at a time, there will be a point when both of them are, you can tell, are just on edge, and you say, okay, stop right there. You reach out your arm, both of them reach out their arm and their fingertips touch. It is the weirdest thing. You can do it with anybody. You can do it with anybody. You start to approach them and you're in a fighting, aggressive position, and you watch and you get to a point and they'll stop. And you say, okay, reach your hand out. They'll reach their hand out and their fingertips touch. Why? Because intuitively your brain can tell, it can measure the distance at which you are potentially in trouble. If the person takes one step forward, they can hit you. They can't reach you quite yet. Their arms aren't long enough, but with one step, they're going to hit you. At that point, all systems go on alert and everybody freezes. And it's like, who's going to move first? That's the fighting ma'ai. Okay. Contact ma'ai. What does that mean? Well, if there's going to be contact, I've got to step closer, or they've got to step closer, because I can't hit them. My arm isn't long enough. Their arm isn't long enough. So now you step inside the fighting ma'ai to a contact where you can actually make contact. And in my martial arts training, and I've been doing it for 22 years now, and as an instructor for about 16 of those years, there's a place, if I'm inside of ma'ai, if I'm inside that fighting ma'ai, in contact ma'ai, there's a place I want to be. I'm going for a particular spot where I can control the situation. Then that's the right place to be. But there's a hurricane ma'ai, okay? So hurricanes, there's only two places to be in a hurricane that are safe. One is in the middle of it, right in the dead center. And if you can stay there, you're fine. The other is a long ways away. There is no safe place in a hurricane except dead center or way far away, okay? Now, there is a position in trading. There is a risk-reward correlation where you should be and where you shouldn't be. That's the point here. All right. There's a fighting ma'ai, a risk-reward relationship. There's a contact ma'ai. All right. There are different places that will work for the type of trade you're trying to use. If you don't have it, then you're in a hurricane and you're going to get clobbered. It's just, that's the way it works. It's all relative. The distance or the risk proportion that you take has to have a reason. It does not have to be a specific, okay? But it has to be something that makes sense, and it has to be there for a reason. All right, so let's talk about risk in a little, let's broaden the discussion a little bit, because what is risk? Well, risk is the amount of money that you can, one, afford to risk, two, are willing to risk, and three, that you can see or value as a cost to find out. You can do this trade? I don't know. I think so. I kind of like the trade. Okay, how much are you willing to spend to find out if it's going to work? What do you mean? I mean, how much I can lose? No. We're going to talk about that. How much are you willing to spend to find out if this trade works? Most people haven't thought about it that way. They need to, but most people haven't. Now, all traders, even the very best, lose money. That's true. No trader has to lose any money. Wait, what do you mean? No trader has to lose money. Why? You mean they just don't trade, right? It's a trick question or a trick. No. Active trading in the market, you don't have to ever lose money. Okay, that doesn't sound like that can be right. Well, it is, and I'll explain it to you. Your brain is hardwired to avoid losing, folks. Your brain is hardwired to avoid losing. In all things being equal, your brain will do just about anything it takes to avoid losing. Nobody likes to lose, okay? But all traders, even the best, lose money, but they don't have to. Now, am I playing games here a little bit? I am, because I'm going to help you with the concept of redefining losing. You may have a trade that costs you money. You should never have a losing trade. Now, semantics, yes, absolutely. Legitimate, absolutely. Am I saying that seriously? Absolutely. You should never, ever lose money on a trade. You may have a trade that goes against you. It may cost you money, but you should never have a losing trade. Now, this is so important. R. Part of risk and part of the terminology in developing a trading strategy is kind of universally talked about as an R. What is an R? The R is the amount that you're going to risk. It's the cost to find out if the trade is going to work. Okay? It has to be money that you are willing to spend. For example, 1R might equal 1% of your portfolio. You might say, I'm willing to risk 1% of my portfolio on this trade. I'm willing to spend that much to find out if it works. Okay, you've defined 1% as an integral element or a key part of your trading strategy. Okay, so your R is 1%. If you have a $10,000 account, 1R is $100. Okay, if you make $100, you've made 1R. If you spend $100 on a trade that doesn't work out, you've spent 1R. Okay, it's a measurement tool. So an R in most trading circles where there's a plan involved is a defined amount of money. It can be a percentage. It can be a dollar amount. You might say, okay, 1R for me is $1,000. When I make 1,000, I pick up 1R. If I make $500, I picked up half an R. If it costs me an R, it costs me $1,000. Okay? It fits into a trading plan in whatever context it needs to fit in for you, but it needs to be an element. You have to have some measurement. There's also a very, very interesting thing that happens. When you start measuring your trades in R's, it emotionally detaches you from money. Okay, emotionally, you have a lot of things that make you vulnerable in the markets, big time vulnerable, guys. It's crazy, the games that the market can play with your head, because we all have emotion associated with money. So dealing with R's is a little trick. It actually works. It helps you. And now some of you already know this. You've heard me before and you've heard this from others. It's not new to you. But tell me, especially if it's something that I helped train you on in the past, tell me if it doesn't help, if you use R's, that it actually changes the way that you look at valuing a trade, whether it's a good or a bad trade, profitable or non-profitable, how it keeps you emotional. Does anybody have that? If you have, great, share it with us. If you haven't, then all of you stand to gain something wonderful if you'll let me train you on this, because it is such a huge difference. When you trade and you think in terms of R's, it emotionally detaches you from your money connections, your money emotions. All right, I didn't see a single response to this. So either chat line's working or we're not connecting here. Does that make sense to anybody? Is that something that you can imagine would be a positive if you could disassociate trading value with actual dollars? Yeah, Jeff says, yes, I can. Good. Good. All right, so an R, it defines the risk and reward. So an R can be money you make, it can be money that you spend or that it costs you, but it's just a way of measuring, and it makes a big difference emotionally. So the second R is ratio. So risk, we have reward, risk, and ratio. Let's talk about ratio. Ratio is part of the mathematical evaluation. That's all. It's part of the mathematical evaluation. When you have a 2-to-1 ratio, that means there is $2 of potential upside for every $1 of risk. So you have 2 R's to 1 R. That's a ratio. 3-to-1 is a ratio. Okay, that's all. It's a ratio where you have $3 for every $1 that you risk. $3 of reward for every $1. A 4-to-1 means the trade has 4-to-1. What's the right one? Guys, there's no answer to that. The answer goes back to this. The 1% rule, which it's talked about out there, is for day traders, and it limits the risk to any given trade to no more than 1% of the trader's total account value. Traders can risk 1% of their account value by trading either large positions with tight stops, or they can do small positions with just a stop loss placed far away from the entry point, which either way, a stop loss defines a dollar amount. That's a hard dollar amount, or you can use a percentage. All this really means, and it's not terrible advice, it's just very incomplete advice. All this means is you got to have something. You got to have something that defines what a risk tolerance is, what your R is. And it can be percentage or it can be a hard dollar amount. Now, is the 1% rule magic? No, it's just a rule. It's a number. It's a 1% number. But this is also another way to do it. I'm going to risk 1 R as long as there is at least 2 R's of profit, or 3 R's of profit, or 4 R's of profit. Okay? Those are simply ratios that you build into a formula. I know traders who will not touch a trade unless it has a 4-to-1 ratio. Rob, in his training, has got different ratios for different trades, but typically, he's looking for at least a 3-to-1 ratio. I like 4, 3 or 4. 3 or 4 works for me. I don't like 2-to-1 ratios. Okay. Although, if a 2 is a double and a 1 is a cost and you're okay with that, fine. But I don't like it. I like 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 better, just because I like better odds. But there is a sense of, as you improve the potential upside, you often increase the potential downside or the risk. Okay. Robert says, since I've started trading with real money, I still have the emotion to deal with. Correct. But if I have my R's right in my head, it makes it a little easier to deal with because it is a definite. Yes, it's also subconsciously, Robert, it's not something that you associate with dollars. It's just numbers. One of the greatest adages that I've ever heard that is just a superlative is you have to trade bored. When you can reach a point where you can trade bored, you're there. That's your kind of holy grail. That's your nirvana, when you can trade bored. Well, what does that mean? That simply means that you have been able to divest the emotional connection to where it's just numbers. And it's just numbers. And if it's just numbers, guys, when you play a game, a card game, let's leave cards out of it because people put money on card games. But if it's a board game, or if it's a game with little game pieces like Jenga or whatnot, I mean, they're just numbers. Okay. And so it is important that you have a way to divest yourself from the emotional connection to those numbers. That's all. And it works. So take heart. Your trading plan, whatever that plan is, guys, the way this is going to work for you is the trading plan needs to be your plan. Ultimately, it's got to make sense to you. It can start out as somebody else's plan, no problem. No problem. Go down to the very bottom of the page. It says you can follow and learn from a coach. You could have somebody set up a plan. I mean, they may have a plan that's all set up and you go, I'm going to study this. I'll follow your plan. I'm going to learn it. Guys, it may or may not be the best plan, and it may or may not be the one that you use ultimately, but it is something. Mike, you have a raised hand. What's the question? Type in your question. I don't know how to respond to your raised hand, unless you were waving. Mike, type in a question if you've got it there, because I'm looking at the last thing was from Robert, and I don't see anything from you yet, unless I missed you, and I'm looking back and I don't see it. So type in your comment or your question. Be glad to address it. You have some place to start with. And I love the idea of starting with somebody else's plan, as long as you've got a reason to do that. You're starting with something. And I love the idea of modifying it. Okay? Because ultimately it's got to be your plan. Here's the component. If you work it, it'll work. If you build it and you work it, it'll work. Now, it may work mediocre, but it'll work. And as you tweak it, it can get better. If you have a deliberate risk-reward ratio, your plan can work. Because what it does is it limits the risk and it defines the potential reward, and it makes you own that. I'm okay with that. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. If you have rules to enter and exit, now this becomes the intricacies. These are the different components of the strategy. I don't care what they are, guys. The secret to a great trading plan is not the entry and the exit definitions. No. It's the risk-reward ratio. That's what determines whether or not the profit is satisfying to you at the end of the day. I had a good entry point, good exit point, made some money. Good. How much money? Why, $20. Is that good? I don't know. I have no idea. What did you risk to get the $20? If you risk $30 to make 20, I don't care. Quit celebrating right now. Run and hide. Turn in your cards. You are not a trader. Okay? If you can follow your trading plan and adjust to it, it'll work. How about this one? If you have the right starting capital. So guys, see, let me show you something. I have been working on a particular strategy and testing it for the last 4 months. For the last 2 months, it's done miserable. It has not done well. It did well prior to that. I'm convinced it'll do well in the future, but we're going through a market right now where this particular strategy does not work well. Okay. Now, having the right starting capital means that when you start into a trade or trading plan and you've developed your risk reward ratio, you've got your rules set up, you have to have an idea in your head of how many times can I run this scenario and have it not work before I say stop. Okay. There are trading plans that allow for a certain number of trades to go against you. And as long as no more than 3 in a row go against you, you keep going with the trade, with the strategy. And you say, wait a minute, you had it cost you money 3 trades in a row. And you're still doing it? Yes. Now, for some trading plans, you're going, whoa, stop. Your plan only said if it does it twice, you stop. Yeah, well, I want to give it one more try. Now you've just broken your plan. No good. You may have the right ratio, you might have everything, but you're not following your plan. Another plan might say, we've tested this out and it can go against us up to 4 times. and we're still good because it tends to cycle and it'll come back and we can take a hit up to 4 times in a row. Okay, then that's part of a defined trading plan and you do it. And after 3 times, you're not freaking out. You're following your plan. But if it's a 2-hit limit and you're on number 3 because it worked pretty good in the past, so let's give it one more try. No, that's where people blow up. That's why 80% over time wind up not making money, because they don't have the specifics and they don't follow the plan. They may not have enough starting capital to be able to sustain 3 hits in a row and go one more time, or 4 hits in a row against you and then go 1 or 2 or 3 more times because you didn't have the right starting capital. And guys, for some people, that's a really hard thing. If you got $30,000 and you want to trade, it may be really hard if your strategy says you cannot have more than 10,000 in the market at any time. That means you got 20,000 sitting there doing nothing. Well, I can't have that. I can't have the money sitting around doing nothing. It's got to be doing something. Well, okay, you just broke your plan and you will blow it up. Give it time, you'll blow it up. You won't follow it. You don't have enough capital. The next thing is if you can test it fairly and sufficiently. Guys, you've got to be willing to test. And yes, as Robert said, eventually you do have to start trading with real money. But before you do that, you need and you can test it. Now, I've had critics say to me, to my face, "Oh, Ryan, that's BS." Okay? You'll never learn anything. It'll never be real to you unless you have real money at stake. Otherwise, you're just pretending, you're doing paper trades, and it's not real. Okay, so much truth to that, and so much lameness. The truth, yes, if it's just paper trading, it does not correlate to funded trading. It doesn't. Because most paper trading isn't done serious. It isn't done accurately enough to replicate funded trading. And in your mind, you're thinking, it's not really funded. Hey, screwed up. We'll just try again. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, you have to be able to test in an environment that simulates reality. And then you've got to be able to phase in. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can start by making 1/3 of the trade funded and 2/3 non-funded. You can kind of tiptoe your way into it, wade into the water. There's nothing wrong. The old adage of just throw a kid off the dock, and if they swim, their instincts will kick in, they'll swim. Just throw them in there, they'll swim. Yep, and sometimes they'll drown, right? There's too much at risk for that old school approach, as much as I understand that. But the simulation has got to be real or it is worthless. So you've got 2 ends of the scale. You can throw them in there and risk drowning, or you can stay over here and pretend like you're trading and you're really not. Okay, so you have to work in between, and it can be done. I'm a big proponent of proper simulation and how to do that. So you start to simulate first, then you nibble, and then you can feast. So you kind of wade your way into it. You will know if it works if you do it this way. You'll know if your trading strategy works. You'll know if your risk-reward ratio works. But you've got to do it. You've got to put enough reps into it, and you can and should learn from a coach. Now, you may take somebody's strategy and their whole process and copy it. Great, but you've still got to do all these other things, including adjusting it to you, ultimately adjusting it to you. My bad here, sorry. I got a little crazy on the finger, the stroking on that. Okay. All right, now I'm going to switch over here to the Trade Navigator, because there was a question on that. And I want to show you, give you some little elements of what we're talking about in this, from a trading standpoint, in an application. Okay, so I'm going to change a window here, and you're going to tell me when it shows up, because right now I don't think you're seeing Trade Navigator. All right, hang on a second. I'm reading a couple things that have shot in here. Dora, that's I'm just reading a message from Dora here. Yeah, there is some advice that I'm sure that we can give you on that. That's a sad situation. I'm really sorry that that happened to you. Larry says, was the bracket trading class that you did years ago real enough? Larry, that was the start of the whole idea of trying to find something that is real enough. I mean, that was the whole idea of that class, was to try to recreate trading. That became the Trader's Forge. Okay. And the Trader's Forge class that I taught, I am going to be doing the same kind of thing again. But the idea is that the simulation trading has got to be real or it's worthless. In fact, it's worse than worthless. It's dangerous. It gives you a sense of confidence that is unjustified. And so this idea of sliding into it, doing good practice, good simulation, which the tools now are phenomenal, much better than what we had back then. But then you kind of transition. So you slide into it to where you don't feel a bump. There's no speed bump. You just start trading, you start funding a little bit, then a little bit more, then a little bit more. If it works in your simulation, then you test it out with a little bit of money, then a little bit more, and you just slide over. Okay. Trade Navigator, can't see it. Thank you. That's the feedback I was looking for. So let me change the screen sharing again. New share. We go to this one. And then tell me if you're seeing it now. Thank you. Kevin says, yes, seeing it. Okay, good. Okay. Okay, great. All right, so let's take this down. We're looking at a daily chart here, and I don't want to do Baidu. Somebody give me a stock that you like to trade. I like doing this where you guys call the shots. Just throw something out there, throw a stock in there, somebody, and I like to do things blind because otherwise somebody's always going to assume that you're doing a canned example. All right, so here's the cues. And you can see that we're up at a short-term resistance. So this goes back to the first of the year. And we've been up here before, 2 times in April. Now we're approaching this again. We're up at this resistance level of 342. Okay, so what does that mean? I don't know. Let's give it some time frame. So we go back to a weekly chart, and now we're looking back over a much bigger period of time, years. And you can see this is a very significant high point. Okay, the Qs is a representation of a big chunk of the market, right? As a trading derivative, we are at a major resistance point. Okay, is it going to punch through? Well, we have higher bottoms, higher tops. The pattern would suggest that we push through and we throw a new high. Okay, now we failed at this point here couple of months ago, but the pattern suggests that we'll push on through. So now I'm going to pull this down a little bit and say, all right, if we had and I'm just going to give you a reference point here. I'm going to use a little tool just to kind of give you a proportion here. Okay. So the downside on this is about 329. Okay, about 320. So I'm going to put 320 as a reference. And on the upside, what's our upside target on this? Well, the upside target is going to come from transferring a top line on this trend upwards, and it's going to point up here to about 380, 390. So we'll put 380 in there. And now you've got a reference point. If this trade were to turn against you, and if you were to write it down, your lower level, if you run these bottoms up on this most recent trend, I'm running it up here, and I guess we can fudge this probably up to about 328 or so. I'm going to change this and make it 328, because if we're following the trend, and if you allow the trend to be a definitive for you, then 328 would probably be an okay number. Okay. On the upside is the 380 over the next 2 or 3 months. Realistic, a possibility? Yeah, it's maybe a little bit high. It is the outer perimeter. So if we pull this back down into a range that is a little more likely hit, it's probably about 375. Okay, that sounds good with me. And so now, just as a reference point, just so that we can see, we'll throw that in there. So now you've got a 375 and you got a 328. Okay, so we're sitting at 340 right now. If you went backwards here, that's 12 points down. If you go forwards, that's 35 points up. What's the ratio? Guys, it's a 3 to 1. Okay. Helen, my picture is hiding it. I'm sorry, it shouldn't be. I'm not seeing where the picture's on the screen, but if it's on, oh, it's on your screen. Move, you can drag it on your screen, Helen. Just move it out of the way. All right, so this gives you a 3 to 1 ratio. Okay, 12 points to the downside, 35 to the upside. Is that enough? I don't know. What does your trading plan say? What are you looking for? Personally, guys, this is the kind of situation I like. I like to have a 3 to 1 ratio, 3 to 1 upside over what the cost could be. Now, I can change the perspective on this, and I could say, well, if we were in a real short period trade, a real short time trade, I would use this line as my baseline for an exit strategy, which means my exit would be about 335 here. So that's only 5 points down. Well, what's your upside? Well, I've got to take out this resistance. And if I go to the top expectation of this, that is going to be a push to the upside, almost the same. So let me give you, I'm going to reference here. So here's my new 335. That's my new exit strategy. On the upside, guys, I would use this. There is a classic trading pattern scenario that says if you take out an all-time high, the place that you start from is your target on the upside minus about 10%. In other words, you're never going to go for 100% duplication of the effort it took to get there, because you're burning fuel. You're burning out some of the buying pressure to get up here against resistance. When you break out on the other side, yes, there will be a burst. Oftentimes there's a burst. And if it's a good full burst, it probably is about the same distance as what you did to get there. So I'll duplicate that, and I'm going to move that up and say, that's my upside target. Cool. Now I'm going to back off of that a little bit, just because there's some loss in the momentum, because you've burned up some energy and buying power just to get to the line of demarcation to punch through on the other side. You're not likely to go that same distance. You'll probably use more than half your fuel to get there, and maybe you've got 2/3 of it on the other side. I don't know, but I would pull that down and say, I would say, okay, my downside is $5. My upside is from 340 up to 360. So it's 20. So now I've got a 4 to 1 ratio on a short-term trade. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. Now, what happens if it stalls at about 10 points up at 350? If it stalls, I'm taking the money. It's still a 2 to 1. And if it looks dicey, maybe I'll take half the money, and maybe I'll risk some on the additional 10 points, see if it goes up there. But there will be a reason. There'll be a trading plan. And I'm not trying to give you a specific trading plan. I'm giving you pieces of what a plan would have to entail, what it would have to include. But that relationship between the reward and the risk has got to be there. Now, this is just dollars of looking at a stock. What if you're doing options? It gets more complicated, because options have a percentage correlation, And you've got to look at your upside target and what the potential change in the option is, not the change in the stock, because now you've got delta, you've got gamma, you've got other elements that makes it not a linear correlation. The movement of the stock does not have a linear correlation with the option movement. It's a tangential or an exponential relationship. So it gets a little more complicated, but the elements are still there. If you have a trading plan, it has to include this type of thought process. And no matter what the rules, the strategies, the intricacies, all of those things, fine. It all hinges on the risk-reward ratio. It all hinges on the risk-reward ratio. Sherry says, I really like the R&R explanation, calculation just now. Good. I'm glad you liked it. Okay. Now I want to go back to Robert's comment and the idea that since he started trading money, using R's helps deal with the emotion. That implied that it certainly hasn't fixed it, but it helps. All right. So guys, I had in one of the slides and I didn't dwell on it. I'm going to go back now and just bring it up again just because. And I didn't dwell on it. Kind of wish I would have, but I wasn't sure. And that is, if you're going fishing, guys, don't fall in love with or don't name your worms. Okay. That was taught to me when somebody was raising rabbits and their kids would play with the rabbits and name them. It made it really hard to eat that rabbit. Okay. Or that chicken, or that pig when it came time to harvest them, because that's what they were for. Made it a little hard to, sit there at the table and eat Ralphie, If you can deal in terms of R's, it changes the relationship because it's not so much money, all right? You've got emotional connection to money. You can get emotionally connected to little Ralphie or little piggy, and then it makes it a little hard to eat them. Trading needs to be bored, and the only way that's going to happen is if you're neutral, and the only way you're going to be neutral is if you're not connected to it in an emotional way, and it has to do with redefining losing. Okay, guys, the reason I said, and I want to finish this with today, the reason I said earlier that you never have to lose money on a trade, even if you're actively trading, it goes against you. If you have defined what your risk-reward ratio is, if you defined that the risk is $830 and the reward is $3,800, and you're willing to spend the $830 to find out if you get the $3,800, if you can honestly say, I will put down $830 and it could go poof, and I'm okay with that. Well, of course you're not. Well, no, you can be. Why? Why would you put down $830 and say, I'm okay if that just goes poof? Because you, and by darn, you better have a good, solid belief that the pattern suggests that if it moves in your direction, there will be $3,800 of reward. Or close to it. And if you really believe that that is the upside, because of the rules, the strategy, the analysis that you've done, everything lines up and it says you should have $3,000 to $3,800 upside profit on this trade if it moves to the upside. Cool. What if it does not? What if it doesn't do what it looks like it's going to do? What if it goes the opposite direction? Well, it's going to cost you $800. Now, guys, this is where you stop and you got to think and you got to be real. Are you really okay with spending $800? I love the analogy. I've given it to students for decades. You like ice cream. And I tell you, there's a flavor of ice cream you've never tasted before. It's a lot like raspberry, but it's different. A lot of people love it. I can show you lots of people that love it. Can I tell you you're going to like it? I can tell you, but it's not true. I don't know. Neither do you. But if I say this ice cream is going to cost you $1.50, okay, it's a little package on a stick, cost $1.50 to try it. Now, here's the reality. If you spend that $1.50, you could wind up saying, this is the best ice cream I have ever tasted in my life. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Or you could go, What in the world were you smoking? Are you serious? Yeah, look, that guy over there is eating it. Well, okay, that's fine for him, but I hate this thing. You've got to be willing to say, well, you know, it's worth $1.50 to find out. You cannot say, I can't stand this and give me my money back. No, you can't have your money back. You knew that you might not like it. Well, yeah, but I was sure I would. There's your mistake. There's your mistake. You can't be sure of it. You don't know. And you can't be sure that stock is going to go to the direction that was going to bless you and make that $3,000. You don't know that. All you know is that the ratio is okay. And everything points to this will probably be a good trade, but it might not, but it probably will. And if it does, there's $3,000 to $3,800, and it'll cost you $800 if it doesn't work, or maybe $300. But the worst case is $800. What do you say? So guys, if you've named your worms before you go fishing, if you've named the rabbit, if you've named the piggy, you're setting yourself up, because if the trade doesn't work, you're going to count it as a failure. You're going to be upset. It's going to, everything goes wrong. But if you can look at this like an ice cream and say, for $1.50, yeah, I'll try it. And it turns out, yeah, I didn't hate it, but it wasn't, I'm not going to do it again. Okay, fine. You don't go around kicking people and throwing rocks through windows because you didn't like the ice cream. Guys, it's got to be the same way. The reward risk ratio is in fact the core of all of this. I would do this trade on the short term if there's a $5 downside and a, how much? $20 upside. That's a 4-to-1 ratio. What if we only get 3? I'm okay. What if we get 2? I'm okay. What if we break even? I'm okay. What if it costs me $5? I'm okay. I'm okay. Because I've decided it's worth $5 to find out. I cannot lose a dime. I may spend $5 and not like the outcome, but I will not ever lose $5. Everybody got that? Thanks, Brenda. I appreciate it. Brenda says, cost of doing business. Yeah, and Brenda, that's easy to say, isn't it? But guys, this is something that takes practice and application, takes some coaching. I can tell you this, and I know it's 100% true. Will you immediately be able to integrate this and it'll work? Probably not. Why? Because is there something wrong with you? No, you're normal. It makes sense to you in this conscious mind. You go back in the environment you're normally in, it's going to trigger the emotions, and boom, wheels come off the wagon. You need help with this. You need training. But you've been exposed to something that I can tell you, I honestly believe, I know, I could say, I know, is it true? I know it's 100% true. And Brenda, bless your heart. And that's not the Southern way of saying it. I love you that you said this. I love you for saying it. Guys, there's no greater gift that you can give to a teacher than to show the application of what they've taught you. And Brenda's last comment is, she said, that's why you have to learn to listen with your eyes. That's a phrase that I coined, that I've taught students for 20 years. Listen with your eyes. Guys, when you look at this picture, it simply gives you an outline. It shows you your risk on the downside. It shows you your reward in the upside. It's that simple. Do I need to know the fundamentals of this company? Not necessarily. All I need right now is the pattern. The pattern is telling me where to get in, where to get out, what to expect. And from there, I can develop that reward risk ratio. From there, I can make a decision. From there, I can make a rational choice to spend $5 to find out if I get 20. It's rational. It's not emotional. It makes sense. Okay, and it's going to cost me $5 to find out. Thanks, Brenda. I appreciate you. I really do. Larry says a very timely class. Well, I hope so. I hope so. I hope there's something you can take away from this. But at the same time, guys, I hope you realize that there is a lot more to this. Okay, there's a lot to the application. The training process and the repetition and having somebody take you through it over and over again, that's how you do it. Okay. Robert says that the emotions really come up if you deviate from the plan. Yes, it does, because in your brain, in your subconscious, I know I'm stepping out onto thin ice here now. I've had to teach myself the difference between managing the plan and micromanaging. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. This is why you practice your plan. You practice all of this in an environment that you can survive, the simulation. And then you put a little bit on the line. Put 25% of it on the line, then maybe 50%. And if you start to wobble, then that tells you, okay, and I'm practicing good, but now I've got some real money on the line. I'm the old, things are starting to kick in. Got to be careful. And you can make those adjustments if it's a small amount of money. You got to be able to survive it. You don't just go from off to on, 0 to 60 in one step. Work your way up. All right, guys, I'm going to go back. And just remind you, Omega charts. This is a big improvement. This is a big step in the right direction from Trade Navigator. I'm really looking forward to utilizing it and these tools. Highly recommend all of you do that. There is a link that's just been put in there for the Trade Navigator. Take advantage of it, guys. It will save you at least $200 to $300. If you're interested in doing it, do it now for a better price. Then later when you go, yeah, this really does look good. Can I have the old price? Yeah, sorry. Sorry, it's just the way it works. Okay. In this case, it's a great deal. And it is open now. It does close after now, right? This is your last time to do it. All right, guys, God bless. Love you all. Love the opportunity to chat with you today. Hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend. And thanks from Wealth Builders. Bye-bye.